Massenomics. Welcome to Massenomics, the world's strongest podcast. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Massenomics. Make sure you go visit Massenomics.com. There you'll find the rest of our powerful content. While you're there, check out our store and buy yourself some of that sweet Massenomics gear. Welcome to the Massenomics podcast. That's it.
That's a lot of S's.
It is, actually.
Massenomics.
Massenomics. Like economics of hugeness, sort of.
Massenomics.
Don't let me forget your t-shirt either. That's in the bag.
What?
Yeah. It's black.
All right. Are we recording or what?
Yeah, we're sort of going. So if you wanted to rattle that off, and then we'll rock and roll.
Hi, this is Scott Mcgee, and you're listening to the Massenomics podcast.
Thanks, Scott. So, all right, guys, we are here in the harsh winter of Los Angeles. It's, 72 degrees here?
It was for like 5 minutes, and I think it now dropped to a solid 68.
So, I'm here with Scott Mcgee. Scott is host of the Wodcast podcast. He is a law enforcement officer, all-around general Batman, mostly.
I thought you were going to say Batman fan. But legit. Well, there, I mean.
Yeah, I was calling you out. He's got the mask here and everything.
I got a mask. I got a batarang. I got a bat cave.
As Scott doesn't know this, but Scott is fairly responsible for this Massenomics podcast existing. Basically, I started listening to some sort of fitness-based podcasts, and yours was one of them. And especially early on, you and Armin seemed like you two were just having so much fun tolerating Eddie, and and so kind of in that process, when we started doing this thing, I really felt, shit, we definitely need to do that. That sounds like that'd be a good time. So anyway, thanks for existing. That's why we're here.
Hey man, it's first of all 100% our pleasure. Number two, I definitely want to thank you for coming here and allowing me to come on your podcast, full circle here. But this type of stuff, and this goes back, it hit me when one of our earlier episodes with Chris Bell, and this is when we were still at Eddie F's apartment on his couch, like full on like Wayne's World style of fitness podcast. But then Chris Bell came on, who's the director of Bigger, Stronger, Faster. If you guys haven't, I'm sure everyone listening here has seen it, but it's a really good documentary on steroids.
Yeah.
Well, he came on, and then as soon as we finished recording, he's like, wow, this is great. Like, this is so much fun. You don't know how lucky you guys are to be able to do this every week. And it kind of hit me like, he's right. Like, this is a lot of fun to actually sit with your buddies and have fun and get to interview people and learn things and have a blast.
Yeah. We've been really fortunate since we started too. We launched it, and we kind of live in the sticks. So we didn't know if we'd ever get to actually interview anybody. We're like, well, this is going to get really old really fast if it's just us three assholes sitting in my basement talking.
You don't have awesome guests visiting the town, or what?
There's not a lot of fitness juggernauts showing up in Aberdeen, South Dakota. But we found a handful of people. We've interviewed world champions and many-time national champion powerlifters, and with as long as you're willing to pony up and travel, we've been able to do some pretty cool things with it. So it's been a lot of fun. But with your guys' with the Wodcast podcast, the thing that I always kind of liked, you guys, it's kind of CrossFit based, but my favorite thing was the amount of general shit that you talked about CrossFit and CrossFit HQ. Do you guys have quite a bit of backlash about that?
Yes. Early on, there was the antagonistic attitude, and it kind of stemmed from Armin's persona of the naked CrossFitter and the blog that he had written that generated a lot of steam, and it was basically calling out the bullshit that was happening and bullshit products and stuff that he felt were like ridiculous, and he would explain why. But then he would say, you're a dickhead. He would instead of just
wouldn't be the most articulate follow-up.
But there was some truth to it, and it was funny. And eventually when he started the Wodcast, there was still that anti CrossFit. So now the show itself for a little while was somewhat blackballed by CrossFit, and some guests were afraid to come on because they didn't want to like sever any relationships with or perceived like potentially sever things or be shown in a bad light. And that was early on. I mean, we're talking 2012, 2013. And some people felt that way. And even Kenny Kane, who was one of the original hosts, felt that kind of pressure. And that was one of the reasons why he ended up leaving the show. And because, you know, he's on the Wodcast, which has this antagonistic kind of shit-talking show. And then obviously then he goes to do Positivity Project. You know,
The polar opposite.
yeah, but you know, in this type of show, and obviously Armin has come full circle now. You know, now he, you know, he's not that guy anymore. Went full corporate on us. He's driving around in a headset and a polo shirt somewhere.
Armin is fully corporate now at Flow Elite, basically chasing CrossFit HQ all over the place. Everywhere that CrossFit HQ won't go, right? For the most part.
Well, yeah, because the places that they're at,
HQ
they won't allow
let him, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but he's developed a better relationship, and the show has as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we've grown a lot. We've gone through it, but now it's not so much only a show to antagonize. You know, now it's a show telling stories and interviewing, and we've talked to everybody that you can think of in the CrossFit world, and anybody outside of that, kind of with a link to CrossFit.
Yeah.
And I think they've also loosened up a bit with the sense of humor, because that's kind of where the show comes from. It comes from a good place. You know, we're all CrossFitters. We love CrossFit. Obviously, we love talking about it. That's why we have a podcast that is perfect for your CrossFitter. Because look, now I get to talk about it into a microphone
all fucking year long.
Yeah. So if it comes from that, it comes from a place of love. We don't I think it'd be kind of different if we did not CrossFit and we were just sitting there talking shit. But it's also coming from the same type of conversation that was happening in every CrossFit affiliate.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of calling out the shenanigans.
Yeah.
And making fun of ourselves.
Yeah. Like, how much goddamn money are they making off the open? You know, that type of stuff. You know?
Yeah.
I want to back up just a little bit. What kind of is a general overview of like your training history? Like what did you do before athletically that then brought you into where you started doing CrossFit?
Well, grew up playing sports, and then fast forward to football in college. I played wide receiver at Davis.
You're a big fucking wide receiver.
Yeah, but I was a little smaller.
Okay.
I'm actually losing weight now. Armin brought that up recently on a show. I'm like, yeah, I've been running. In fact, I ran right before the show here. So if I start laughing and coughing, because I still have that like runner's
burn.
Yeah. Because dude, there's something about like running no more than let's say 3 miles.
Yeah.
You go run 3 miles as hard as you can.
I'm not going to do that.
Well, you're not, because you're like gigantic.
Mostly.
But there is something about like your respiratory heart and lungs that you're feeling afterwards. Just kind of like a Fran lung.
Yeah.
So if I start coughing, that's why. Thank you, LA smog.
Yeah.
But so I started doing training in college. I ended up hurting myself a few times, hurting my hamstring and having to take time off. And then eventually one season it just completely blew up on me. And I went through like a depressed stage where I started like drinking a lot of beers. I started drinking 90 ounces of Miller High Life before I'd even go out at night. And I know that because I would go down to the liquor store and get 3 30-ounce glass bottles because they were super cheap. And, you know, I started thickening up a little bit. I was going to a AA meeting for injured athletes that my school offered. Because all my buddies were traveling, playing football. I lived with a bunch of football players that were traveling, and I'd have to sit home. And you had that crack in identity. Yeah. You know, you identify as an athlete, and then you lose it. What are you?
Especially, you know, if you're playing at a high college level, it's been a very huge part of your identity since you were a child, I assume.
Yep. So with that, I mean, there's a whole other tangent that I see parallels going on with CrossFitters. especially like the higher level CrossFit athlete now, like regional level and potentially game level athletes, when they get hurt and they can't CrossFit anymore.
Yeah.
What are they, right?
Yep.
You can see the struggle in their social media posts and everything. That's a whole other topic, the whole cracking identity and how do you recover from that. But I started doing a lot of reading, read some books by Pat Croce, who's a rags to riches story, a trainer, ended up owning, I think it was a hockey team. I don't remember, hockey or basketball. He was a trainer or an owner for one. He's either hockey or basketball. Anyways, has super positive attitude. And he recovered from a motorcycle accident. And in there, I kind of learned the importance of personal responsibility for your own predicament. And so that hamstring blew. And for a long time, I blamed the trainers. It's like, they didn't fix me correctly. And this is why it keeps coming back. So it hit me like, hey, it is 100% in my control and up to me. And this is an opportunity for me to heal it and make it stronger than it ever was, come back faster and stronger than I ever was. And that totally lit a fire underneath me.
Yeah.
And at that moment, changed my life forever. Changed how I read a book, like how I take responsibility for everything.
Yeah.
And that comes from fitness, relationships, you name it. So I started eating better. I started training harder. And that's what started kind of like the pre-CrossFit mentality. And I say the CrossFit mentality because typical CrossFitters are thinking about hydration. They're thinking about nutrition. They're thinking about rest. They're thinking about recovery, mobility, fitness. You know, there's a lot of things that have to do with your overall health and fitness.
Yeah. More so than just showing up to the gym and getting out.
Yeah. And so after college, I started going to like the LA Fitness out here, the typical gym stuff. But I would run to the gym and I would do like burpees and body weight movements in between like my typical strength movements, like your incline dumbbell bench and bench press and all this stuff. And so I was still actively moving. I'm like, I'm not coming to the gym to stand around. And then I started training people, and I started training in a group class. And in the group classes, it would be a square. And I still do this to this day. If I need something super quick, I had 4 cones in a park. And one side of the square was an upper body movement. The other side was a lower body. Another side was core, and another side was full body. You spent a minute at each station, and then a minute rest. So let's say you had, for the upper body, be push-ups, and then it'd be, squats, air squats, and then maybe a plank hold for a minute, and then burpees for a full body, and rest a minute. And I would do that like 4 or 5 times, depending on the people. Yeah. And so essentially, it was an AMRAP, kind of similar to Fight Gone Bad workout. Yeah. So all the stuff that I had going on, like at that time, was kind of like just unorganized CrossFit. Yeah. So when finally my buddy pointed out this website, and I started doing it, and I was like, "This is what I've been looking for."
It's the same thing I've been
doing.
Yeah,
and I guess that feeling has hit a lot of, I think, a majority of the generation of athletes around my age, plus or minus 15 years, that were attracted to it, because then it felt like a sport. It felt like practice. You go to the gym, you get together the group, and here's the challenge, the physical challenge, and you're doing these things. And there's a warm, cool down, and jaw jacking, and some crap talking. So you had a camaraderie, and it was kind of sport oriented. And so that was really all she wrote right there.
And where were you at as far as in your law enforcement career at that time?
Oh boy, so I started doing CrossFit in 2006. So I was just like a brand new officer. Okay. But prior to that, I was still like, for a little while, I was trying to be competitive in 5Ks. I went through that phase. I went through a phase where I didn't do any cardio for 9 months. I just power lifted, which was a really interesting time in my life, because I felt like I could flip a car. Yeah. Like walking around feeling like so strong. Yeah. Was really, really cool. But then like I couldn't like carry groceries up stairs without huffing and puffing.
So, what is the relationship with the way you train to your job now? Like how do those work together? What are you trying to maintain training wise?
So there's been a evolution there of how I train, and the purpose of what I'm training for. for a while, from like 2010 to 2012, 13ish, I don't remember now, I was being competitive in CrossFit. I had made regionals through the Open, made regionals, and then competed on a team, and was training a couple times a day, snatching, doing all the fancy stuff and programming, and I'm elite. Like, I need special programming for me. I'm not going to I can't take a group class. Are you kidding me?
Working out in the corner by yourself.
Yeah, all that stuff. But then, I had it. First of all, if you're like good fitness, if you're in good CrossFit shape, you're going to be in decent law enforcement shape. Mm-hmm. So, except there's some parallels in the sense of like, you get to learn how to like stay calm under pressure or stay calm under physical pressure.
Yeah.
Some CrossFitters aren't as good as others in that. You can see it in their face if they're stressing out a lot while they're moving.
That's me. I pace around in circles. I pout. I lean on things. I get mad. I stomp my feet.
Well, but no, I'm saying while you're doing like a thruster.
Yeah. Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
While you're squatting or while you're doing burpees. Mm-hmm. Because your body's going through stress of the work you are asking it to do. You don't need to add emotional stress to the movement. Like, let your body do its thing. Relax.
Yeah.
Like, relax your face. You don't need to make those stupid looks on your face. Go neutral face. Relax your neck. Even relax your hands. A lot of times you see people holding their hands and it tense because all you're doing is raising your blood pressure and making the movement that you're asking your body. You're just causing more issues.
It's like driving way less efficient.
It's like driving your car with your foot on the gas and then a little bit on the brake.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've actually never thought of that.
Oh yeah. You can you'll start noticing it now. Like even in the middle of a kettlebell swing, or even if you get like, in a lot of movements, they have that little tiny space in the flow where you can totally relax, where you're not actually doing anything.
Yeah.
Like on the thruster, let's use that as an example. As it's passing, as it's coming off your shoulder, the energy you've already put into the barbell right there, you're not doing anything. It's floating. You're relaxing. You stop the bar from going up, and then as it's coming down, you're not doing anything. Gravity is. Yeah. Just chill out. Bam. So going back to the law enforcement part, any of the foot pursuits or fights I've been in feel like a CrossFit workout physically. I mean, as far as like your fitness goes. Mm-hmm. A couple differences are you don't have a chance to warm up. You're wearing a weight vest. So just imagine you're sitting here right now, and I throw a 25-pound weight vest on you, and we're sitting here. At some point in time, you have to run around the block, and then hit a heavy bag a bunch of times, all while talking on the radio and telling people where you are.
Not a chance.
But that's how it is. And that's the reality of it. And that's exactly what happens.
But most CrossFit people can't move quickly without spending 15 minutes warming up either. You know what I mean? Like, how does that?
Because, well, for one,
I certainly can't.
Those instances are very rare, right?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, it's not like it happens all the time.
Yeah.
But CrossFit, when you go to your gym, it's a physical therapy center. Mm-hmm. You're there doing prehab or rehab.
Yeah.
And so whether you're doing this movement, you're doing range of motion stuff. If you're squatting, you're rehabbing your knee, you're rehabbing your hips, or you're prehabbing it for a future age issue that you would have if you did not squat.
Yeah.
And so doing these warm-ups and everything is good for your body. You're improving your range of motion. Like you're going in there physically to improve yourself. So in that sense, it's important. But there is a functional aspect to fitness that's in the real world outside of the gym. And for military, for law enforcement, or really for anybody, there is that functional component of, can you do what is asked of you, and can you do it well?
Yeah.
And so that's where the ability to stay calm, if you're running, the ability to pay attention to like, hey, what's this person look like? What are they doing with their hands? What's their clothing? How old are they? What direction are they going? What's the crime? What's going on in their car? And being able to say all this stuff on the radio calmly while running, and then worrying about your safety and everything. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other component to CrossFit or fitness in general that I like to add in. So to do math problems while you're carrying a sandbag, in your head to do the alphabet or to stop. Hey, right now, do the alphabet. Start on the 17th letter.
Good Lord.
Right? No, but here's the thing: you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
But it's can you concentrate and can you stay cognitive while you're doing a physical skill? So a lot of times you're allowed to kind of check out. Like, hey, 50 burpees. Okay, brain, you are done. We're just doing burpees now.
Yeah.
But instead, like looking around and be like, okay, that person's wearing a blue shirt. Okay, what are they doing over there? Or see this my Sisu poster back here. I've read that thing backwards. I've started off all kinds of letters. I've done all kinds of weird things with that. Just mentally, to mentally stay engaged and keep me focused while being able to do something.
While under like intense physical pressure.
Because that's the thing. Like you can slow down your mind and your thoughts regardless of what your body's doing.
Yeah.
You can kind of, sort of learn that lesson also in yoga. If you're putting yourself in a weird position and you're all goofy, your body's all stressed out, but you have to completely relax your face and your eyes and like go full namaste with it, right?
Yeah.
Because you realize, hey, my body's under stress, but that doesn't mean I am.
Yeah.
So all these things kind of tie into why CrossFit is good for law enforcement. But it's a short burst. It's an anabolic fitness, not just anabolic, the aerobic and anaerobic part of it, where like just jogging 5 miles every day is not going to prepare me for a foot pursuit and fight.
Yeah.
It's just not. So being able to train in all kinds of different energy systems, energy pathways really helps.
Do you believe that in law enforcement, at least in your experience, that is there an issue with some law enforcement officers being physically prepared? Is it or for the most part, do you think, at least in your experience, most of the guys you work with stay on top of that, stay in shape, and are as prepared as they can be?
Well, I can't speak for like the whole country.
Yeah.
Because law enforcement is very different across the country. Like how the quality of the officer, the physical skills, like the training,
the demands of the job are different here than they are where we're at.
I would say LA itself is generally like a pretty fit city. Mm-hmm. In the culture going into my department is very like fitness is a thing. Like a lot, we have affiliate owners in our gym, several coaches, several competitive athletes, and so it's become part of the culture, and not necessarily just CrossFit. I'm just saying, like, while it is popular, but the fitness is important. You have Muscle Beach there, Venice Golds. I mean, there's gyms everywhere, so it's part of the culture. So being fit, or at least appearing fit, maybe I should say that, appearing fit is like
it's got to count for something, right?
Yes, no, it's a huge tool.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. If you show up and somebody like, you show up looking all nice in your uniform, and then you show up like, wow, you look like you could like run, or you look like you could hurt somebody if you had to. But I don't say hurt somebody, but like you look like you can defend yourself well.
Yeah.
And if you're strong and fit, you're also going to have some confidence. Mm-hmm. And so this is going to stop a potential, fight or flight situation.
Yeah.
I completely think so. But there are guys that don't train at all, and we can't force them to.
I suppose because, are there some sort of minimum standard? But I suppose that's very minimal.
Well, you only
kind of like the equivalent of lifting 50 pounds and on the job description. And
there's it depends on the department. Some departments have like a physical test as an incentive.
Oh, I see.
Like a little bonus.
Yeah.
But there's a physical test during the hiring process, and then there's physical tests in the academy. Once you are on the department and you're working, there's, with us at least, and I would say at most, there's no like physical test after that.
Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah. But if like for us, if you're on a SWAT team, then there's a physical test that you have to pass twice a year.
Gotcha.
I wish there was, but there is some liability issues. Guys, can be training for the test and get hurt, and now they're not working. So
yeah, then they're no good to anybody.
I wish there was. I wish there was some type of incentive. I wish guys would just work out, period, like,
Because I suppose, I mean, at some point, it can become your problem,
yes.
and I think that's where the issue lies. I mean, when your job is to protect and serve, you should probably be physically capable of doing both of those things.
Yeah.
Aside from, it would be the responsibility to your fellow officers as well as, the community, to at least be able to do the things that are asked of you.
That is a huge drive for me. A huge drive. When I'm training, or the reason I consistently train, I'm not necessarily only, like, it's not just for me. It's like, if something's happening or someone's in a foot pursuit or a fight and they see me coming, I want them to be like, yes. Not like, crap, is there anybody else? Which we all know there are people like that. Any officer can think of at least 3 people in their department where they wish it was somebody else coming.
Yeah.
But it is for them. And so I'm able to be a good partner and also be a good guardian for my community.
Yeah.
It's also for me to be able to recover from injury, not just injury or traumatic injury.
Yeah.
But it's also like, I think it's Ripito that said, like, stronger people are harder to kill, right? So I want to be as best that I can with what I can control for my family. Because I don't want to be like, hey, I couldn't run around the block, I got out of breath, and the bad guy took my gun and beat me in the head with it because I couldn't spend 1/24th of my day training.
Yeah.
And 1/24th of your day is an hour, by the way.
Yeah.
And you don't even need that much. You can break it down to 20 minutes.
Yeah. Now, I want to go. Well, let's fast forward a little bit. How did you come to collaborate with Eddie and Armin in the Wodcast? How did you meet? How did a law enforcement officer who does fitness things stumble across a stand-up comedian who does fitness things and fucking Armin and the naked CrossFitter at that time?
Well, I've actually never seen Eddie's show, by the way. People tell me he's a stand-up comic. He talks about it all the time. But, like,
you can't confirm whether or not he actually does it. I have
zero experience with him in that world. Like,
yeah.
To me, he's just Eddie. I do a podcast with him, and he CrossFits. It's fine. I need to go. I'm gonna go to Eddie's show one of these days. But so Eddie, if you go back far enough in CrossFit, like 2006 to 2010, like there's that period of time where in Southern California, if you CrossFitted, you kind of knew everybody that CrossFitted. There wasn't that many gyms,
yeah,
and everyone kind of knew each other if you're really into it, right? And so I knew Eddie because we were both going to Paradiso CrossFit at the time. And I knew Kenny, same type of thing. He was at CrossFit LA, and we met just through the CrossFit circuit because there wasn't many of us training at that time. And then Armin was going to CrossFit LA as well. And these gyms are very close to each other. So I don't remember exactly when I met them, but we were all connected because we were early CrossFitters. And then I remember Armin going out there with my buddy Maddie from Stronger, Faster, Healthier, and the floor. I used to have the floor in here, not this one. The floor I had in before, which is all rubber matting. Yeah. I actually bought from Armin and his brother from CrossFit 818 in like 2009.
Oh, that's right. Because Armin and his brother used to own CrossFit gym, right?
Yeah, CrossFit 818. His brother's still there. But so this is how we all got connected. And then we would talk, periodically. And then I came on because I was close with Kenny, and Kenny was a co-host at the time. And the show was still fairly new, and I was listening to it, was a big fan of it. And we were getting to talking, and they thought it'd be interesting to hear about a police officer and SWAT operator who CrossFitted and how those two mingled and related. Because CrossFit was large in the military and law enforcement kind of early on. And it had kind of spread through my team. We had done some SWAT competitions, and we're winning the fitness part of that. Talked about how the fitness part helped the job and why you do it. And so that's kind of how it got started. And I came on as a guest, I want to say like episode 14 or so there in the beginning, and then came back later on again. That's why sometimes people enjoy hearing law enforcement stories. And then I started guest co-hosting around in the 40s or 50s. I guest co-hosted like 10 times when Eddie was gone. And then when Kenny left, it was just like, made sense.
Now, how many years has the podcast been around? Is it 4 or 5? I don't even know what number you guys are on.
I'll tell you, I think 252 episodes. And it started February of 2012.
Wow.
We started like the same month.
That's damn near 5 years.
We came out, we were the same month as Barbell Shrugged.
Crazy.
Yeah. I don't know which one necessarily aired first.
Did it go from there being 0 CrossFit podcasts to 2 overnight, and then a shit pot within, how long before it became pretty saturated?
Man. So,
because now everyone has a podcast.
Yes.
I have a podcast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's funny because, well, it's kind of like saying like there was at some point in time there was 2 CrossFit affiliates.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now 13,000, however many they have, the 13,000 didn't necessarily just spin off of the first 2.
No.
So, but there are a lot of podcasts that started because of the Wodcast.
Yeah.
Directly, like from people that have come on our show and then gone to start one.
Such as?
Let's see, Mark Bell, you're welcome.
Yeah, I remember that.
So that goes back to the Chris Bell when he came on, and then he went and told his brother about it.
And it was like right away then Mark had it, right? Like
it was pretty close.
Pretty quick,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. I think we joked around with him about that. I don't remember.
He's paying you guys dues now, right?
Yeah, he sent me a bunch of slingshot stuff. Every month he calls and says thank you. Haven't been on his show yet. Really? That's the other thing. Like if you started your podcast because of our show, like bring us on. Let's talk about it.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Well, see, paying your dues. No.
Take notes, Mark.
But you know what I think? I think it's totally cool. That has happened. I don't look at it like, oh man, another podcast. Like, man, that's like cool because more people are having fun doing a product that they're proud of, right? And they're happy. If we started something and there was a bunch of people doing stuff that they didn't want to do, then I'd be kind of bummed out about it. But like we're spreading like a lot of fun and passion to people that are doing it, and I've helped people move it along best that I can. Because I know that the amount of work it takes to be successful at it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's cool. Like, I mean, some people just flick on Facebook Live now.
Yeah. And it works. You know what I mean? Like it really is pretty much the same product.
Yeah.
It's
difference,
shittier, but
yeah.
For me, like as someone who watches that stuff, it's kind of an irritant. Mainly because I get a notification and there's no production value at all to it. And that's what's really frustrating. It's fucking selfie camera and someone just talking about God knows what, and you can't really plan it. And
it's funny, like one that it goes. So obviously there's the thing like, everyone has something to say. Yeah. That doesn't mean that everyone should have a platform to do so. But if you don't like it, you just turn it off. Like, no big deal. Yeah. But it's the Facebook Live stuff, like, find a better angle. Like, some people are doing, like, the upward showing the coming down low and going upwards to the chin. Like,
it's like 80% nostrils shots.
Yeah, man. Like, you could set up a good angle with, like, a good angle and a little bit of lighting. Just, that's all.
And I think you can still do... I'm not 100% familiar, but I believe you can still use like a TriCaster through that. So you can still have like a real grown-up camera that's run by somebody. It just has to be run through something with an internet connection.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, start there. Fuck, I mean, it's not that hard. The other interesting thing, though, with there being so many podcasts is we were looking into some of the numbers. Are you familiar with those? Like what the fallout numbers are for people that start podcasts? It's like an astonishingly high percentage fall off. I want to say it's like 7 episodes, and then it's 12 or 13, and then I think 23. And I think if you clear those, you're very likely to make it 2 years. But
well, that's part of it, because people are excited about doing a podcast, and then they do a few and they burn out, and they already said what they wanted to say.
yeah, they spend their whole lives developing 5 hours worth of material, and they get it all out there, and then there's nothing left.
Yep, which is what I always tell people. If you're really going to do it, you have to be prepared to commit and be resistant and tenacious with driving it forward, and not sitting on your laurels, not getting tired of doing it.
Yeah.
You just have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
And you guys, you pretty much, what is it like for you, at least trying to line up guests here? Is that like, how far out are you doing this? Are you just constantly in contact with people to try to put something together? Or does a lot of your shit come together last minute?
I try not to do the last minute thing. But I'm lucky that I'm in LA. I know that likes getting you, but lucky I'm in LA. And so people are here. The people that are here generally like talking.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of people that visit. And so the pool is like, I won't say it's like shooting fish in a barrel, but it's easier
this would be the spot to be if you want to do it.
Yeah. So, but it is like, because I've been CrossFitting for so long, like we were talking about, I know, and I have a lot of connections, like deep roots in the community now. And I know a lot of people, and so I'm able to use that to my advantage.
Yeah.
But then I stay on top of it, and I plant seeds early. It's starting to get kind of challenging.
Because
we've had everybody.
How many years you've had everybody?
Yeah. So, and I try not to always get the same guests. Sometimes I do, because they're awesome characters. There's always more to talk about, and they're fun.
I would guess that there's certain people who you plan on having on regularly forever, right?
Yep.
Like I would assume that someone like Julian
Yes.
is somebody that you would have on as often as is available.
Yeah, Julian's great. Hunter McIntyre is always kind of a riot. And so part of it is the availability. Do they have stuff to say, and are they good on the mic?
Yeah.
Because obviously there are some people that can come on the show all the time, but they're a lot of work as a host.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, and so you have someone that's like self-driven and talking and likes to do it, and it's energetic, and it's like cool. But Julian and Hunter, obviously for a long time, Dusty Highland's always great. And these are people that, like, for a long time, Julian was like, hey, if you don't have a guest, like, just give me a heads up, like a couple hours ahead of time, and I'll come on. Or if somebody fell through or whatever happened. So that happened a few times.
Yeah.
Where he just comes right over. And now look at him.
Fucking Julian, man. Speaking of Julian, you guys are also the reason that I got into jacking around their sandbags. I think he had given you guys one, and I basically found Julian through the Wodcast. You're welcome, Julian. But these sandbags are the most awful / awesome thing, right? Like,
yep.
I don't know what's your take on them. You have a set here.
I have 3 of them. I have 120, 180, and 240.
And does that 240 just hold your floor down? Do you drag that around much?
It's hard to drag.
That's my thing, man. I've had my 180. I've kind of brought it in the gym, and we'll take it. Sometimes we'll load it up in the back of my pickup and take it out to the track and do some shit. And it has been in the back of my pickup because I just don't want to fucking carry it into the gym anymore. And that's only the 180.
Christmas Abbott picked that up here.
I think I saw that.
Yeah.
Was that the 180 or the 2?
The red one she picked up.
And that was That was the 2.
That was the 180.
The 180. Okay.
The red one only on that is 180.
Okay.
If you're curious, just Google like Christmas Abbott Wodcast, something like that. It's on YouTube somewhere. But those things are character builders, man. I love those things.
We've talked about them before, but they're basically like, I don't know. Every time you're engaging one of those, in my head at least, it's just fucking quit. You know what I mean? Like, all I want to do is drop it. All I want to do is breathe. You know what I mean? It's, they're man makers. They're a treat.
You know what I like about them is one, they're awkward. Two, you underestimate them all the time.
Yeah.
And they're mean. But I like that. I don't want it to be like super easy, and I want it to have a fast, effective dose.
Yeah.
So obviously in a busy schedule and stuff, like they hit me good and fast, and so I'm getting what I need. But I do like to. No, maybe like is not the right word. But you're carrying something that is kind of like carrying a partner or carrying a human body.
Yeah.
So that's where I like that kind of training.
When I first got ours, and I think I'd even talked to you on Instagram about it, and messaged Julian about, because like I said, we kind of live on an island in the middle of the sticks, so there's nobody who says who I can go to who's gonna say, oh yeah, here's what you should use these sandbags for. And I get I start messing around with them, and I'm getting asked questions from people at the gym all the time, like, why in the fuck are you messing around with this? What do you need a 180-pound sandbag for? How dumb is that? And like, I'd say a week after I get the thing, at my job, I do heating and air conditioning. So I end up having to lug a 210-pound compressor, just like you're going to carry a sandbag,
yep,
up a narrow staircase by myself, no roping it up, haul one up, haul one back down. I mean, and yeah, they're the shit. I dig them. You can find them on strongfit.com. along with all sorts of other neat things. But
I also like them that they're unpredictable. The way the sand sits and everything.
if you try to like clean and press them,
Mm-hmm.
or clean and jerk them, like just getting one to your chest and then trying to figure out, it seems like every time you get it to your chest is different. You know what I mean? And sometimes you can snap it overhead, and
Yep.
other times it just smothers you, and you never had a chance to begin with.
I like when you're carrying them, a heavy one on your chest.
I don't like that at all, Scott.
Well, stay with me. I like it because you start having that like, I can't even do it right now. where you can't, you're not necessarily able to breathe.
Yeah.
But again, this is where like I disconnect from what's going on with my body. Mentally, I'm like, okay, body, like it sounds like you're choking, but just know that you're fine. I can tell that you're getting enough oxygen in. Just keep going. You're fine. Don't pay attention.
Because the lights are still on.
Mm-hmm.
You'll know when it goes dark.
Well, if you're making that noise and stuff, then air is getting in.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
It might not be as much as you'd like, but it's getting
it's
there.
enough.
Yeah. When you can look up on our Instagram at Massenomics. If you go back, we did a little video that was the scene from Game of Thrones where he's climbing out of the pile of
Yep.
of dudes in the big battle scene. And we've got that going on while Tanner's lugging the sandbag, and you can see just right as he drops the bag is right when John
He comes
up and gasps for air.
I always think
That's that feeling. It's like having 40,000 men standing on your chest.
I always picture when you're doing that, Arnold Schwarzenegger in Total Recall when he lands on Mars and he's like, that's what that feels like to me.
Obviously, Julian's a pretty kick-ass guest. What are some of your more memorable guests that you've had over the years? The ones either I'd say the most impactful, or just the ones that are anything that stands out.
So it's kind of hard to pick guests. So let me see if I can rephrase it and pick moments.
That's good.
So, and the ones that come to mind, because I didn't think about this, but the ones that come to mind right now are, I don't remember which episode it was, but with Kenny Kane and I, and then we started talking about our dads. Mm-hmm. And we both, like he had, on that show, he recently lost his mother, and we talked about that with like having new kids or new babies and your parents passing away. And so we had a full like heart-to-heart conversation. There's some moments in our show where, and it's usually me, I just come to think about it, it's usually me where the other guys take a step back and will move away from the mic and just let us talk. And that was one of those moments with Kenny. Beautiful moment. Tears were being shed and everything.
Yeah.
And another one was with Sal Masakela.
Recently.
Yeah. And we started talking about race relations, law enforcement, what's going on in America, and listening to each other.
Yeah. There was no argument. It was back, and then it was forth. Yeah. The interesting thing about that episode too was that episode I think started with approximately 10 minutes of fitness talk or normal talk, and it literally was the race relations and law enforcement conversation.
No,
for the entire podcast. Then.
No, but that started like an hour and 12 minutes into it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
We talked about like
maybe that was the only part that I remember.
Well, no, yeah, because I think the part of it was we were talking about Sal and his relationships and CrossFit and Froning and regionals, and eventually we got into that, and then it went. I don't remember how much longer, but we want to do some follow-up stuff with that. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet.
Yeah,
but maybe some stuff with just Sal and I.
Sal's always always a great guest to have
on. Another person I liked, Elizabeth Akinwale comes up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we were in Boston, Arm and I were in a hotel room talking to her, and again, it was like heart to heart, like actual conversation.
Yeah.
Because sometimes on the show, it's just kind of like on the surface.
Everything's
like
glossed over.
Beer and peanuts, like joking around.
Yeah.
But I like to dig a little deeper, and sometimes when you have that dynamic of fun and a lot of people in the room, sometimes you can't dig as deep.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. One of these days I might do a segment or do another. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But those ones, man, obviously Julian I like a lot. But I don't have like a single moment there.
Yeah. Julian, when I first heard Julian, I was like blown away. You know what I mean? It was like, where the fuck does this guy come from? How have I not heard about him before? You know, it was, Julian is an exceptional guest.
But
there's a reason Julian has kind of blown up into where Julian's at now.
So this is kind of where like my favorite parts of the show, right? Let's just say I have these moments and I get to talk to these awesome people on the show. But I would say one of my favorite things is to have somebody come on the show and assist them in bringing information out of them, assist them in telling a story, assist them with some sort of coaching, assist them with some thing they have going on to help boost them in that realm.
Yeah.
Because I have this platform. I don't want to, there's nothing I'm promoting. Like, I'm not a coach.
You're not going to retire from law enforcement anyway.
I'm not a coach. I'm not like a salesman. I have nothing to sell. But I have stories to tell.
Yeah.
And so that's what I like to, when someone like Julian to come on and like, hey world, check this guy out.
Yeah.
And so and now see where he's at. Like that, like the success he's had and the seminars he's done and the other podcasts that he's gone on since then and the sandbags and stuff.
Since then, Julian has been on every single podcast in the world.
He's
mostly.
He's a little slut.
he's pretty.
We have an open relationship.
Yeah, Julian has gotten around a lot. I mean, he's really in demand. I mean,
but he should be.
He really should be.
And so for a long time, so that's where I get like rewarded, where stuff like that happens. And we joke around with this whole Wodcast bump, that awesome things happen to people that come on our show, but that is my reward.
Yeah.
To sit back and like be able to see all that stuff and just be like, have a little bit of like, hey, I like help boost them along. You know, I didn't create them. I didn't do anything, but like I helped them along the way somehow or another. To me, that's like the best part.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think the last thing I got, Scott, is I'd like you to. You also have a new project you've been working on called the Sisu Way. Can you kind of tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, oh boy, let's see, where do I start with that? I kind of started a little bit with my one of the blog titles called For Dad, and in 2012, my dad was diagnosed with cancer and was fighting it. I'm gonna try and speed this up a little bit, but fighting cancer, and same time my wife was pregnant with our first child and my dad's first grandkid. And then it came to a certain point where like it looked like he wasn't gonna make it. You know, he's in the hospital, like he's getting worse. He has chemo and he's doing these treatments and surgeries to remove things, and then it actually progresses things. So it came to a certain point where it looked like he was not going to make it, right? So, and I remember actually the moment where like I shook his hand, in a way it was like thank you and goodbye. It was weird.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I had to gather like all my strength and be like, hey, Dad, start writing. Like, you're not going to be there for your grandkid. You're not going to be there to watch him grow up playing sports, which is like painful because that was his thing. It's like, you're not going to watch your grandkids play t-ball. You're not going to see him throw his first pass or play catch. So, like, write. And one day I'll give it to him. So he's like, okay. And then luckily we had the baby and he got to see the kid once in the hospital. And then a week after my son was born, my mom, I'm driving along, my mom calls me at a certain time of day that was kind of suspicious. And all she could do was apologize to me. And she didn't have to tell me, like I already knew, like he had passed. Mm-hmm. But she was apologizing to me because he didn't finish. She's like, I'm sorry, he did not finish. And what ended up happening was he was writing on an iPad and he wrote roughly 2 paragraphs or so and then ended up coughing up blood, and that's when he died. And so when I saw the iPad, there was like blood on the iPad. And I opened up and I see what he was writing, and it was information that I never knew about him. And he was a good writer.
Yeah.
And so there's, obviously he'll speak to them through me, but there's nothing like documented. There's no words. There's not necessarily any video or guidance or any lessons he's directly going to be involved with. And so seeing that, and then also being in a line of work that really in life, nothing is guaranteed at all. You can hop in the car and drive to the grocery store and not make it.
Yeah.
But in this line of work, like, it's dangerous. Things happen. And that motivated me to start writing and like preparing to not be there, mm-hmm. and start leaving lessons for my kids. And so I started writing. And that's kind of like where the Sisu way started.
Had you done much writing before that? I mean, was that something you had done a lot of?
No, every now and then I would write something, but random, like, I would just get like overwhelmed with like motivation to write something about something. Mm-hmm. Like a letter to myself. Try that one day.
Yeah.
Or write a letter to your future self or your past self. You'll be amazed what comes out. Or write to your kids. If you're a parent now, write to your kid when they're like 18. Or it's like so impressive what comes out. So I started doing that. I started documenting like the birth of I took the entire birth process and pregnancy part of my first kid. I wrote all that out, mm-hmm. to him in the future. So he has that info. So I started doing things like that, telling the whole story. And like, I started doing that again with the second kid when we started going through a lot of pregnancy struggles with him, mm-hmm. and documenting all that. And then that's what really started the Sisu part of being resilient. And that really stems to one moment. The second kid had a blood thing going on with mom where their blood didn't match up. And so mom's immune system was attacking his red blood cells and his ability to create red blood cells. And so we found out around week 20, 22 that this was happening. He had, his heart was like 2/3 the size of his chest. He was anemic. He had swelling between his scalp and his head, swelling in his abdomen. And all these things are fatal to a fetus. And so we met with the doctor quickly, and we're trying to figure out what kind of plan or what to do. And it turns out the only thing we could do was either eliminate the pregnancy or fight. In the fight, there's a chance of being blind, deaf, development issues, all kinds of stuff like that, based on the anemia. And the process for that was you go in and they do an intrauterine blood transfusion. So they go through the womb, through the stomach, through the womb, into the umbilical cord, into a vein in the umbilical cord, which is really small on a 22-week-old fetus.
Yeah, that's
and then they do a blood transfusion there. And there's only like 2 people in the United States that do that. Luckily, one was in LA. So we get this plan to go, and 2 days prior, she stops feeling a move. She could feel a move. I couldn't feel, like he wasn't old enough. and stopped feeling him move. So she thought that he probably died already. We finally get to the hospital. We're all like heads down and like defeated. And the first thing he does is get the ultrasound. And hey, look at that. The baby has a heartbeat. So, phew, okay. She goes off for surgery. I'm sitting in the waiting room. And then once that's done, the doctor comes out with like 3 people with him. And I'm like, all right, that's not good. That's generally for security purposes, so I don't attack the doctor for killing my kid.
Yeah.
And he comes out and he tells me, hey, baby's okay, wife's okay, but his blood was as thin as water and it was clear. We couldn't do the full blood transfusion. We could only do half, and we had to sedate him. And you're gonna have to come back next week to do it again so we can finish it. Okay. So get my wife. We eventually go home. She comes out of it. We're sitting on the couch at home, and the TV's on, but we're both kind of like have that like 1,000-yard stare. You're just kind of staring off and just thinking, and you're sad. Like I don't know what was on the TV or what direction she was looking, but like it's like sitting there in quicksand. And then she quickly just snaps and grabs my left hand and then pulls it over under her stomach. And then next thing I feel is like this boom, just coming right through the stomach. I don't know if it was like a punch or a kick or whatever, but it was just a crack right in the hand.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I had ever felt him move. And it hit me, man. Holy crap. It was like electricity just traveling through my entire skin, and just like lighting my spirit on fire. And then I knew immediately, it's like, that's it. We're going to make it. We're not going to feel bad anymore. We're driving forward. We're going to have strength. We're going to have resilience here. We're going to have an indomitable spirit. We're going to be unconquerable. We're making it. And that was it. Boom. Like completely, here is a 22-week-old fetus motivated me more than anybody I've ever met. And so long story short, he did make it. A lot of struggle. But that's kind of where the Sisu thing comes from. And that is to drive on in the face of adversity with resilience and willpower and strength of will, and to not let something like that like define your demeanor. Now, granted, it goes back. I also like really love the Rocky movies. I love those stories. No, I mean that's when you talk about that meaning, and Sisu has been one of my favorite words for a long time, because there's nothing really like that in the English language. But that's kind of like, there's been several like birthing moments of the Sisu way, and that's like one of the main ones. And so I wrote about all that, and I documented some of it on the website. And then a big issue for me for a long time, and doing podcast stuff helps, but then was exposing myself to like the public, exposing what's the word I'm looking for? Being vulnerable.
Yeah.
You come from like, sports and law enforcement, look at me, I'm a tough guy, and not necessarily being vulnerable with feelings and thoughts and experiences. And so I learned by sharing and doing this stuff that I strengthened others and brought together bonds that weren't there with other people, or that I didn't have that connection with. And by doing this stuff, I started getting like letters from people from all over the world, like emails, not necessarily letters like the old days, but emails and direct messages of people that have been going through things and thanking me. And then all of a sudden I found like there's so much power in vulnerability. And so that's kind of where the Sisu way has come from, and me sharing those stories. And it's not just kid stuff, it's life stuff. And it's all stuff that we all are bonded through struggles. And it's a thought process. And it's an attitude, it's a way of life, and it's a way of living. And so really, I would say, one, I want to leave lessons for my kids if something happens to me. The internet is a great place to do that.
Yeah.
I looked for a long time to try and find like, do I type and print it out? Do I use an app? Whatever. I figure whatever goes on the internet now, that one day they're going to be able to like find.
They'll be able to find it.
Yeah. And same thing with social media, in the same way with how I treat my Instagram account. Mm-hmm. Really, I'm talking to my future kids. Or my kids, but in the future. And two, I do it for other people, so we're all like have a lesson and are able to lean on each other. Because I write this stuff, and people will write me back and thank me for it and tell me their story and are very grateful for it. But then I tell them, I was like, no, man, I'm grateful for you because I feel vulnerable and sometimes nervous sharing this stuff. And like hearing you are being benefit by it and getting stronger is making me stronger. And so we're doing this together. And so the togetherness is another reason why I want to do it. And then also the goal with it is to eventually grow it, maybe start selling some of these posters, these Sisu Way posters, making cool shirts, and doing a nonprofit and helping support people that are going through a struggle with that unconquerable soul. You know, whether it's a mom whose kids in the hospital for an extended period of time, to be able to provide them food. You know, that was one thing that was very beneficial by my power supply when my wife was in the hospital for like a month, the baby was in the hospital for a month. They started hooking me up with food, like their little meals that they would deliver. Yeah. And it made that process so much better for me and easier. So be able to help people out like that, and then also to teach my kids about service, to tie them into it and have them like donate toys or go to children's hospitals and try and support other people and teach them about service and use that as a way to do so.
Well, I think that's awesome, Scott. I think, and a lot of those stories are things that I think lots of people relate to. You know, I mean, that specific story I have, you know, we have very similar story with my family, with my brother, my nephews. And so it's, that was one that really caught my eye and hit home. So, well, Scott, I think that about wraps everything up for today. How can people find you? Other than on the Wodcast podcast?
I would say probably on Instagram at @1ScottMcgee.
Okay.
You can hit me up there or direct message me there.
And Wodcast is every Wednesday. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. Releases every Wednesday morning, but they're always there.
They're always there. And I do highly recommend checking out the Wodcast podcast if you haven't yet. I know we got a lot of you power lifters out there in our audience, but definitely check it out. It's a blast, a lot of fun guests, and make sure you go to sisuway.com. Check it out. I really dig it. If you like some of the stuff that we do, I think you'll really enjoy that. That's going to do it for me today. I'm Tyler. You can find me on Instagram at TylerFandStone. Don't forget, go to Massenomics.com. You can scroll down to the bottom of the page, sign up for our email newsletter. There you can go to the store, buy some shirts, hats, all that other good stuff. Make sure you go on Facebook and like the Massenomics official page, and don't forget to follow Massenomics on Instagram. Thanks a lot for having me into your house, Scott.
Of course, my pleasure.
Really appreciate it. And everybody listening out there,
you just heard the Massenomics podcast. With your ears, you're welcome. Check us out on Facebook, find us on Instagram at Massenomics, and make sure you visit Massenomics.com and buy some of that sweet Massenomics gear. From your friends at Massenomics Studio, home of the world's strongest podcast, stay strong.